Y'all, today we need to talk about the future of magic as we know it in the spiral. Right now, I'm in Celenopolis, the most recent update to the main Wizard101 storyline. Y'all loved the last video where I talked about the storyline of Wiz, and Celenopolis has one of the craziest endings I've ever seen Wizard101 put out. In my previous video talking about this, we covered this idea of the wizard being an Earthborn and how we're actually not the only being in the spiral from Earth. Right, this is something that we learned at the end of Celenopolis, and really, the reason why the main big bad of Celenopolis, Khonsu, the real reason he was investigating us is because he was worried that Earthborns could maybe actually pose a threat to the spiral. But that's only one revelation from Celenopolis that could fundamentally change the Wizard101 storyline. Today, I wanted to talk about Khonsu, the person that I think completely shifted the very storyline of Wizard101 based on his addition. He has one of the most peculiar backstories I've ever seen, and some of this stuff not only changes the future of Wizard101, but also worlds that are already in the game. One thing that at the very end of Celenopolis that is revealed that I personally find crazy is that Khonsu and the species that I guess would be later known as the Celestians, they are not from the spiral. At the end of Celenopolis, we find journal entries where they actually document the first time they actually find the spiral. They document finding an unusual arrangement of small worlds that are actually, somehow connected, and they find out something that would be later called magic holds them together. They find this magic both highly malleable and quite unquantifiable, and they decide to make a research base, which is literally what Celestia ends up becoming. Here's where I think this actually gets crazy, and this starts like retconning entire parts of the history of Celestia. They built machines to manipulate the energies around them, and that's basically how astral magic was created. The plot actually, leads us there, but yes, Khonsu, the person that we end up fighting at the end of Celenopolis, is the Celestian from outside of the spiral that created moon magic. Basically, he was away from Celestia when the Storm Titan sunk it. He was unable to do anything about it, and he's essentially one of the few remaining Celestians left as a result. Now, why do I find this idea of a being from outside of the spiral creating moon magic so crazy? You can call me a geek for this, but the first thing that my mind went to is the fact that there are actually sources of this magic, or at least very ancient beings influenced by this idea of astral magic that we've encountered. We actually encountered these trees years ago when Imperia came out, when we went through the Elemental Grove. This is one of these, I guess, highly centralized places of magic in the spiral. This is essentially where we ended up facing off against the Storm Titan, the Grandfather Spider, Grandmother Raven heated up here. What I find really odd is if astral magic was created through the use of technology, then what magic created these trees, and what magic can we learn from them? And conversely, what if we use the methods that the Celestians used and applied it to all the magic that we already know? Right? Could there be a form of technological death magic that uses the methods that the Celestians used to create astral magic that's different from maybe the death magic that we've learned in the more traditional way by just being in tune with the spiral? I think it opens up quite a few questions on how manufactured magic can be. I think it's a whole ass different type of element. They might choose to tie that in with this little idea of the blended grove, right? I think this idea of combining magic is already a way to, I don't know, add some layer of complexity to the game. But who knows? We might actually see something related to how Khonsu actually made astral magic applied to magic that we also know already. I think another plot point that further, proves this, there are astral relics in Zafaria as well, right? If y'all remember the plot of Zafaria, that's where you learn, certain enchants, like Gargantuan and stuff like that. Could these relics be from Celestia? Maybe. I guess it depends on the timeline. However, I don't think that people that actually found the spiral could have outdated such ancient things like trees that grew out of the magic around them. Now, here's the other plot point that I think I really would love to see them do, and I guess it would have to tie into the world of Celestia. If the beings that we eventually knew to be Celestians came from outside of the spiral and made a settlement, right? They documented this 56 knots since they found the small worlds. What is 56 knots away from the spiral, and who lives there? I have a lot of questions about why, if someone that, is from outside the spiral settled in the spiral, what about all the people that they left behind? Why did they not come looking for them? Or have they tried looking for them and they can't? Are they on their way because it's so far away? We could be looking at something that involves specifically beings from outside of the spiral coming and realizing that they actually lost all their friends and family and whoever. We could actually be looking at a very, very interesting plot point where the real Celestians, I guess if you want to call them real, right, the ones from outside of the spiral, they could actually be coming in the spiral to look for Khonsu, look for every other Celestian that basically died to the Storm Titan. Considering this theme of all these civilizations in these worlds that are fighting against each other, they really went very hard on this in Novus especially. Right, considering this theme, and that has a lot of loose ends tied to it, we could be seeing some sort of outside force that invades the spiral, and because so much of the tension has been placed on the wizard being an earthborn, I don't know, it could create a really interesting scapegoat situation where the wizard is blamed for people that are just looking for their family that came from outside of the spiral. I think it could be a really, really cool thing. I could totally see them reusing characters like Mario to Mario from, like, I don't know, whatever he's from, right? The Polarians, the Monkistan. These are all very self-centered civilizations that want an outsider to scapegoat. That's a theme that we saw over and over again. While they could tie that into this idea of the wizard being from Earth, I think it would be really, really cool to tie that into an idea where the spiral's being invaded and we don't even have anything to do with it. I think it would be a really cool way to center the wizard as a protagonist while building on what we learned in Selenopolis. Right, I think it's important to, like, you know, recall how political the situation with the wizard's shenanigans in the spiral has become. We're literally dismantling power structures left and right with every adventure. Right, we're like liberating the Polarians from like a monarchy, unbrainwashing everyone under the control of Nana's corporation. Right, the big thing with Novus was that essentially Design wanted to fulfill the needs of all of these extremely self-centered civilizations, which is why the world fragmented into like a world of bananas for the Monkistans, a world full of fish for the penguins, and yet they could never get enough, right? The people that are most mad about losing power from the wizard are the ones that are jumping at any opportunity to blame the wizard for something bad happening. And I think based on the fact that they set up Khonsu as an outsider, and based on the fact that we're talking about what probably is the most advanced civilization that we've encountered in the spiral, where we're talking about people with the technology from outside the spiral to come inside, when the only other way that we're aware of is the wizard being called into the spiral through magic from Bartleby. We're talking about Bartleby levels of advanced from outside the spiral. I don't know, they could set up like a multiversal civilization fight centered around the wizard. I would love to see that. I think it would be straight up cinematic. That's all I'm gonna say. Would be way more of a concrete villain than we're used to. All in all, y'all, I'm very excited about the next plot. I feel like they actually, the more I look into the plot of Selenopolis, the more, I feel like the more crumbs that they left just so they can, like, you know, flesh it out. I do think that they need to address this plot line of how astral magic originated. Maybe we need to learn more about it. Maybe this will involve learning new spells, new mechanics that could affect other parts of the game. I think it would be a crazy awesome window to do that because of how long it's been since we've had a real update to astral magic. But let me know what y'all think about this idea of Khonsu also not being from the spiral and what that can mean for magic as we know it, considering he's a creator of moon magic. I think it's a really cool discussion. I'm very geeky about this, so honestly, I look forward to reading all of y'all's thoughts. Drop a like if you enjoyed, leave a sub review. Let me know if y'all want me to make more videos about plot points in Wizard101 that have all kinds of implications. I love these types of videos. I hope y'all do too. Stay awesome, y'all. See y'all soon. And yeah.